Over to you, Stuart. Stuart, I think you're on mute.
It would not be 2021 or 2020 if someone wasn't on mute. So there you go. You can put that on your bingo card. Thanks, Amy, and thanks, Deborah, for the great introduction. I know that today's going to be a rich discussion. We're going to do our best to not be on mute for it. We're lucky to be joined with the panel that we are, with representatives from JetBlue and from Walmart, two companies that are really at the leading edge of a lot of the challenges that we face today and solutions. Today, we're going to talk about creating on-ramps and economic opportunity for workers, how both companies have really approached that and how they've been able to think about being equitable and inclusive, and in doing that. Everyone that's here today, I imagine, is going to come away with something that they can take back to their work and think about how they can advance their efforts on this too. The last year and a half, 2020, has been really remarkable. And I think that we've seen a lot of changes happen, but they were things that, if we take a slightly longer look, were kind of accelerations of things that were already happening. So I'd actually like to start by putting 2020 aside and talk about that rapid change that we've been seeing. At the same time, we've had a growth in skills-based, in a really kind of skill-based economy. We've had an aging workforce, an increasingly diverse workforce, new innovative business models that have changed the way that companies are thinking about conducting business, the way that people behave and can buy and engage in the economy has changed. I'd really like to open by asking Amy and Mike, how have your businesses been changing? How have Walmart and JetBlue been changing? In particular, what's it meant for your people strategies over the last couple of years? I'd love to start with Amy, and then we'll go to Mike. Now you're on mute.
Touche. Thank you so much, Stuart and Deborah and the team, and it's great to be here with JetBlue to talk about these important topics. So the first thing to know about Walmart is we are an incredibly purpose-led company, but we're also at the same time experiencing a tremendous digital transformation. The retail industry is transforming before us, and Walmart's at the forefront of defining what it means to serve our customers in a digital way and the way that they want to be, the way that we want to be served. And for us, it's really about putting people at the center of our change. It is a cultural shift. Becoming a digital company is a cultural and mindset shift at its core. And so, and we put our people at the center. So our associates, our 2.2 million associates around the world, and our customers, we have over 200 million customers a week. 90% of Americans live within 10 miles of a Walmart, so our footprint is, very extensive. And so as we're going through this digital transformation, it's critical that we do put people at the center of this. We support our customers through our e-commerce business, our health and wellness business, our financial services business on top of our core retail business. And over the past year, we've defined and redefined our people strategy. So Stuart, to your point, your question, what are the implications on our people strategy? And our people strategy has 4 key pillars: growth, inclusion, digital, and well-being. And those themes run through all of the work that we're doing. How do we grow our associates? How do we create an inclusive and equitable experience? How do we support people's well-being in all the ways in which we can? And how do we make sure that the digital mindset, the digital culture, the capabilities around digital are, reflected in all the work that we're doing?
Thanks so much, Mike. Let's turn to you and hear a little bit about JetBlue.
I have no answer because I'm just focused on unmuting. No, I'm just kidding. I think just tagging on to what Amy said, Stuart, you made a comment when we first opened it up about, trying to block out COVID if it's possible, because it did accelerate a lot of things. But I do think JetBlue has always been core to its mission to inspire humanity. And actually, it's been there since the beginning, as well as our values. But, when you talk about having a mission with humanity in it, what's tricky is it's in the eyes of the beholder. So I think one of the areas that we've constantly focused on is, what needs to be a human interaction and what can be a transaction. And it continues to evolve. I mean, if you go back into the old movies that you watch, some of them comedies, where you have a person taking a ticket or checking in a customer, and it's very transactional. They're not even looking up. They're typing away. Maybe they're asking questions, and they're not even looking at what's going on around the world with the customer. We have to constantly look at making sure that with a mission to inspire humanity and not just moving people from point A to point B, but connecting people, we continue to evolve. You brought up, we have an aging workforce, diversity, but more and more people will become comfortable with automation and technology. Even folks in older generations are realizing that, and that might be one of those COVID multipliers, right? But we still need to be cognizant that as humans, we're all different. So I do think choice has to be the center of everything we do. So if we have a kiosk for a self check-in, then what I'd love to see in our current crew members and our future crew members equals employees for this purpose, folks that can pinpoint when someone's doing just fine with automation or when someone may need some help. How do you pick up on those visual cues? You can call it hospitality, you can call it how you make people feel, but if you see someone who may need a little help, whether it's a lot of children, a large family, or maybe someone who needs help moving around, let's reach out and go to them and make that a human interaction. So you may be combining the automation with some human interaction, but we want people to be able to pick up on that. So that's always been something that we look at when we're looking at our people strategy. And then just one other quick point, that we still also have the technology side, and that's finding the right IT talent, which evolves, as Amy's noting, it evolves every day. And then falling a little bit deeper into that is our pilots and our maintenance technicians continue to be areas where we have to focus on longer term as far as filling that pipeline.
Great, thanks so much. Those are big changes for both of you. I wanted to see if we could kind of dive in a little bit deeper on some of the programs that you've created to build those new skills. And I think that for both companies, you've got two kind of different versions of that. Incredibly strong tuition-based program or tuition reimbursement programs. For JetBlue, it's JetBlue Scholars, and for Walmart, it's Live Better You. But also programs that then focus on those industry-specific skills that you talked about. Can we start with the tuition programs? Maybe start with JetBlue Scholars, and then we'll go to Live Better You.
Absolutely, thank you. Ours is JetBlue Scholars. It's been around for just over 5 years. Very proud of it. We haven't had about 270 folks graduate from it, whether it's an associate, bachelor's. Some of them have gone back for multiple degrees as well, but 270 diplomas conferred on people. One of the things when we started JetBlue Scholars is, keeping the main thing the main thing. And the main thing here is to make sure that folks have that accomplishment of a degree, conferred upon them. So the backbone of this is our success coaches. So when you step back and you look at whether it's a sport where you have a coach and what's really the role of the coach, you look at it from a gym. I'm going to the gym and I have a fitness coach or a weight coach or a mentor. We always talk about them a lot. And I think the backbone to JetBlue's JetBlue Scholars program is our coaches. They're volunteers. They do it, amongst their other duties that they're working on, and they're assigned a number of our students to help move them along and keep them going, because, you only have limited slots, and we want to make sure people move through expeditiously, but also you've got that coach to give you a little bit of a push whenever you need it. So, I really think, while the whole program is amazing, I just really think if I were to ever do anything again, whatever it may be, think about, is there a role for a coach in that? But again, it's very similar to what Amy's going to talk about too. It's remote, but it gives folks a lot of flexibility. And one item of how, first we get more into it, that, we get more out of it than we put into it. I mean, just the fact that even if these crew members get the degree and don't stay with JetBlue, they're lifelong ambassadors of JetBlue. They got their degree through something that JetBlue gave them. So I'm fine with them growing and flying off into another career. That's awesome. But the other thing I noted is that we've used it in so many other areas as well. And when we had to downsize a bit temporarily during COVID, one of the things we did is we opened up JetBlue Scholars to people and said, if you want to take a 9 or 12-month leave of absence without pay, we opened this up to them. And many of them, took advantage of that and said, well, if I'm going to have 9 or 12 months off, and JetBlue's offering this to me, so it fits into so many different roles with again, focusing on our crew members and their development.
That's excellent. And what a way to be able to use what could be seen as a real hurdle for a lot of people to look at the long term and find some. That's a great example. Amy, you want to talk a little bit about Live Better You?
Sure. And Mike, I just love that investment in your crew members through an otherwise really challenging environment. As I mentioned, we're really purpose driven, and I don't think I actually articulated our purpose, but it's very tied to how we invest, how we look to grow our associates. And our purpose is to help people save money so they can live better lives. And if you think about, we're doing that for our customers, helping them get access to what they need, when they need it, how they want to, shop and get access to goods and services. But additionally, we're trying to meet our associates where they are and give them the opportunities to grow and learn. And one of the ways we do that, as you mentioned, Stuart, is what we call Live Better You. And it's effectively an opportunity for our field associates, so those in our stores. We have about 4,700 stores across the country. 1.5 million people have access to this program. And it's effectively high quality degrees through a partnership that we have with Guild Education. And there are 5 key areas tied to skills that we're investing in and that support the future of retail. Technology, supply chain, health and wellness, some other trades. And our associates are able to earn a degree for $1 a day. So there's a little bit of skin in the game, but effectively they graduate debt-free. We've had over 290,000 credits earned, and hundreds of thousands of individuals have gone through, in just 3 years, actually, I should say, 25,000 individuals enrolled in this effort. And we estimate we've helped save $125 million in sort of education costs for our associates. So really, really powerful. Also worth mentioning, because as you described the landscape, 54% of these students are female. It's incredibly popular with working moms looking to finish degrees and sort of get back in the workforce and other, earn new skills. And about 50% of our students identify as people of color. So these are great opportunities for individuals to get access to education, as I mentioned, debt-free. And so again, tied very much to our purpose of helping people live better.
Thanks so much. Thanks for those. I want to turn now to also think about the programs that you both have for thinking about kind of the very industry specific internal mobility programs. And Amy, I'd love to start with you to talk a little bit about Walmart Academy and the talent marketplace programs that you all have, and then we'll turn to Mike to talk a little bit about JetBlue.
Sure. The Academy sort of complement our Live Better You effort that I just described. They're really immersive training programs that teach functional retail and leadership skills to our hourly and our salaried associates. The idea is pretty simple. We took our stores and our supply chain facilities and we turned them into centers of excellence that prepare our associates for not only their current role, but also future opportunities. We have over 200 academies across the country. As I mentioned, they're in our stores. They're part of our supply chain facilities. 2 million trainings since 2020, and actually 80% of those who participate in our academy training stay with the company for at least a year. And in retail, that's a really gratifying sort of outcome. So that's sort of our academy. And in my role as the head of talent, I'm also building what we're calling right now a talent marketplace. Effectively, it's a way to increase the agility of our workforce. And what occurred to me about a year and a half into my tenure at Walmart, I've been here 3 years, was that we tended to go external for our talent. Meanwhile, we have 2.2 million really talented individuals with a lot of potential, a lot of experience and skills. And so the solve for me was, how do we access hidden talent? How do we help people gain opportunity? How do we look internally first before we go externally? And how do we help pull our associates up through the organization? So the question is, how do we replicate the fact that many of our CEOs have been in store, in our stores, started as stockers and cashiers. So this the solve is really what we're driving toward, is this marketplace, which effectively gives our associates visibility to opportunities technologically, right? A digitally driven experience. Let's say you've just participated in Live Better You, you've earned a degree. We should be reaching out to you proactively to say, hey, look, given these new skills that you've acquired, we know that these three jobs that you hadn't been necessarily qualified before are now in your sights. So, are you interested, and so forth. And then also it's giving our leaders access and visibility to hidden talent. There are a lot of people who don't raise their hand, but have just terrific skills. And so where is our hidden talent, and how do we use the digital transformation to gain access and effectively link where we have demand in our organization and where we have supply, and how can we invest in the gaps in the skills so that our associates have increasing opportunities to stay with Walmart and build their portfolio.
I love that. It sounds almost like proactive executive recruiting throughout the organization. So it's wonderful. It's wonderful. That's great. Mike, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the programs that you've got?
Yes, Stuart. So when I listened to your question, I felt it was below JetBlue Scholars, what are some of the targeted items we're working on? So if I were to double click below JetBlue Scholars and focus on our areas, I did note our pilots and our technicians as far as, longer term down the road, we need to work on that pipeline. So in 2015, we set up a program called Gateway Select, and it was focused on removing some of the barriers that there are for folks to becoming a pilot. So the time and then result from 2015, it did cut down the time significantly. We cut the cost in half. We did a lot of different things to help, and that was more focused on just general applicants. It wasn't specific internal or external. And one of the things that we did while we did have COVID, we did have to cut back in a lot of different areas. But what we did say is we want to double down on our crew members a bit. I talked a little bit about opening up JetBlue Scholars to more people, but we created a couple other programs as well. So, we created a Gateway College program. So in 2015, I mentioned the Gateway Select, which is more of a general, how do we become a pilot? The Gateway College program is for pilots, but it's focused on our internal crew members. So it has some additional, if you will, options. It's the XL model on a car. It has some additional options that aren't in the other one. And, first of all, it's our internal crew members. We've tried to lower the cost even more, and we're even backing the loans for them if they maybe don't have the best credit. We're actually giving them job security. So while this is a 3 to 4 year program, depending on where they are in their pilot training, if any, we also are holding the job will perform at JetBlue for the first year. And then, of course, upon graduation, they do have to do some flying at a smaller airline and then move over to us. So, it gives a little bit more job security, but definitely focused internally. And I also mentioned technicians. We're going to mirror the same program for technicians. It's about a 1.5 year program. We're going to be starting that in January of next year. We'll be bringing in applicants second half of this year. And the last one we started, we're calling it a pathway to support roles. And what that's focused on is our frontline crew members, and we're selecting, I think it's a group of, I can't remember, 12 or 24. First thing is 12 right off the bat. And we're going to be interviewing them and bringing them into our support center roles. They're going to get 2 months of skills-based training, and then they're going to get 2 5-month rotations in different departments. So maybe 5 months in finance, 5 months in another group. And then at the end of that, we want to do everything we can to offer them a full-time role in the support role. If you just think about it, you've got a frontline crew member who knows how how the rubber meets the road, if you will. And then you've got the support centers that many times are making decisions for those folks. So getting that knowledge and having that inclusive in our overall decision-making process is critical. So one of the things we're doing to entice them as well is for whoever the hiring manager is that hires one of these folks, again, a year from now, once they're done with the program, the first year the salary cost is only going to hit half of the salary cost is going to hit their budget. So they're really getting a full FT at a 50% cost for the first year of that too. So again, those are just a couple of the programs to focus on getting more of our frontline folks into the support center and then address our pilots and future technician pipeline.
Thanks. And that's such an interesting kind of parallel between both of you, that you're seeing the real value in taking people who have done that frontline work, that know the operations, and helping them move up. Not only is a good thing for them, but it sounds like it's a good thing for both companies. I wanted to see how you all are thinking about building diversity and equity and inclusion into those programs. Amy, I know you already started. You already talked a little bit about just how you're seeing some of those, but do you have any more you want to add on that?
Sure. So we're doing a lot of work within the walls of Walmart, but also outside of sort of the purview of our organization. So in my role, we've spent a lot of time prior to last year and including last year just really ensuring that our practices are inclusive. We look to our associates to provide some of our best ideas about how we improve as an organization, and we're constantly striving to build upon our already diverse workforce. As I referenced with the talent marketplace, pulling people through, we have a really diverse workforce, and how do we help people build their careers, not just based on their current job title, but about their, based on their aspirations. And everyone has the opportunity to advance, and we want to provide that. We're also creating more transparency in diversity in particular. We've created a number of inclusive practices and discussions and forums for individuals. And then outside of Walmart, well, I guess it's hybrid, we've created shared value networks, and we established 4 associate-led shared value networks, which are on education, finance, healthcare, and criminal justice. And these teams are really studying our national systems and identifying strategies where we can deploy to shape these systems toward equitable outcomes. And if we're able to then translate that in some cases to our internal policies or cultural changes that we need to make, we're going to do that. But otherwise, we're looking for those ways that Walmart can continue to play a role in society, in our communities, to improve upon just the equitability of our society.
Thanks so much for that. And Mike, how are you all thinking about
Amy did a great job explaining that. When we go back in the time machine and we think, if we're sitting around and we're doing a calibration session, an end of year performance review, and we'll get to trajectory and say, how does Stuart look as far as his upward mobility, his trajectory? Where is he going to go in the company? You look at different things, the skills that they have, the skills that they can learn, how long it's going to take to be ready. And I really like the title of this presentation today, because a lot of times the word mobility was just simply, is Stuart willing to pack up and move wherever I want him to, whenever he wants? And then if you go back in that time machine and look at people who moved up, it was usually the person who can pack their bags, be in one state for whatever, 2-3 months on a project, be in another state. And if you look further into that person, it might be a younger person. It might be a person who doesn't have any dependents to take care of. And you think about mobility in that regard. So it used to be that mobility is Stuart willing to move? And as we talk about diversity, equity, inclusivity, and we think about mobility, it's what's stopping people from getting to where they need to be. So rather than me saying, Stuart, how fast can you be in Chicago? It's more along the lines of, what are the things that we could do to remove barriers to help Stuart be able to move up in the company? So it's a totally different responsibility shift. There's still mutual ownership, but it's a different shift. So as we think about whether or not, Stuart, I'm going to keep picking on you, If we think about, Stewart's mobility, it's like, well, what are the things that are barriers from Stewart getting to the next level? And when we talk about some of the things under diversity, equity, inclusivity, we talk about unconscious bias. Has the process over time it gained biases to it? And you don't know unless you're constantly reviewing that process. And that's where our data folks come in here to make sure that, did you know that this happens when you do this? And then we got to go back and reinvent the wheel a little bit, because I don't think it was there on purpose, but when you have procedural shift from a process, things just start entering in, and then we need to address those. Sometimes they're good things that enter in as well. Psychological safety. Does Stewart feel comfortable raising questions in a room? If not, why not? Trust in senior leadership. But then we get down even lower when we talk about into people's psyche. And again, I know I'm not supposed to bring up COVID, but home care. Can I make it into work? So long before COVID, we have had issues with women in the workplace who are working remote, and they feel they're missing out because they're not in the office where 90% of everybody else is. Perhaps COVID will level the playing field a little bit. So maybe now, since 90% are not in the office, maybe we're going to have to define a little bit more on how people excel and how they perform, and how do we do performance reviews with people remotely. Again, those are just some of the things as we talk about, what's stopping that mobility.
Thanks. Those are, great examples. And now we're going to turn to those analytics experts. Ryan and Yalak, I really want to turn to you guys to talk about how you're turning these into reality. You guys are doing the work to measure these programs, to help make them so that they can be managed. You can track the progress and how you're getting you're working towards these goals. Ryan, I want to start with you. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you're doing that for the Scholars Program, for the Gateway Program?
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, at JetBlue, we usually lead these efforts with metrics. My team and others will detect opportunities or numbers that we see that we'd like to see improved, and vet different programs with our partners throughout the organization, especially within people, but outside as well, that'll best move the needle on those numbers. And then, once they're developed based on the data, evaluate their success. Right now, for better or worse, I have a list of 9 rank-ordered opportunities to foster mobility that I've brought to people's attention that we are sequencing and working through. And this Pathways to Support program that Mike brought up is a product of those analytics. But of course, the main focus is our overarching metrics. We bucket the kind of metrics we look at in this space into program-specific ones and the all-in metrics. Just to give the group a sense of some of these all-in metrics that we track, we look at the total internal fill rates. So those would be the percentage of roles that are filled by current crew members. We'll then split that out into what percentage of leadership roles at every level of the organization are filled internally. And we want to keep that above a certain cusp over time without setting any set requirements around it, to know that we are to indicate that we are developing our crew into these future leadership roles. And add in the DEI element, we want to make sure we're doing it equitably too. We also look at the composition of our interview slates. After the rec closes, of course, for all my compliance folks out there, we want to keep an eye on that and do some proactive sourcing. If we take a look back and say, you know what, we think this could be a more diverse slate. So we'll set up new partnerships in targeted spaces within recruiting to do a better job with that. Combined, those are the net sum of our metrics around fostering mobility in general. But then we have to evaluate, is each program being effective? For scholars, we need to make sure that we have uptake. Are people still interested in the program? Is it matching their needs? Mike was talking about barriers. Have we successfully reduced the barriers so that people who didn't have these kinds of opportunities before can take advantage of them now? We've seen some great outcomes with scholars. We see lower attrition from the organization compared to some peer groups. We do see higher realized internal mobility for graduates of the Scholars Program, as well as some who are currently in the program. And we love it. And much like it sounds like Walmart's program, JetBlue Scholars are more female than male. People of color represent the group more, and surprise to me, this was something that we hadn't really looked into as much as we probably should have. The majority of scholars are between 40 and 60. So we're not just targeting the youngins with these programs. These are people who are well established in their careers, and they're interested in growing and advancing that career further. So very happy with some of the success we've seen there. For pilots and maintenance technicians, the number one thing we look at is applicant volume, because it is such a large hurdle to get into this very lucrative, stable profession of being a pilot, and then our new program being a maintenance technician. We have to stay vigilant that we are appealing to a different demographic than traditional pipelines and pathways provide. I'm very proud to share almost half of our Gateway Select candidates ended up being minorities. We have quite a bit more, and just for a comparison for the group, and this is stuff that's readily available, industry-wide, it's closer to 15% of US pilots are people of color or minorities. So great to see that complete upending of composition when you work so hard to remove these barriers. Those are the kinds of things we'll look at across all of our programs to evaluate success and make some tweaks if we want those numbers to move even more.
That's great. And those are some great outcomes that are showing the types of things that you'd want to find. So that's wonderful. I want to turn to you to talk a little bit about the way that you all are thinking about some of these same issues, how you're working to think about building measurement around your initiatives for opportunity.
Absolutely. So when you have a leader like Amy, it is impossible not to be data and analytics driven. And what data enables us to do is measure progress and hold ourselves accountable and be transparent, right? Both internal transparency, also external transparency. Data and analytics also has driven this transparency and accountability to representation across the organization. If you look at our website, we are now releasing our diversity and inclusion report twice annually, as opposed to annually around the beginning of the year. We did this to increase our accountability both within the company and, as I mentioned, because we also understand that the impact of our commitment to on the communities we serve. There's a Walmart within 10 miles of 90% of our US households, right? So that's one. The second one is Walmart funded and collaborated with the McKinsey to produce the Race in the Workplace report, the Black Experience report. This report, if you haven't had a chance to look at it, I encourage you to do, is full of data and insights detailing the challenges facing Black Americans specific to employment across the private sector. I've been with Walmart come May now 4 years. And one of the things that impressed me when I joined the company was all of our jobs have a dual entry path, one with a degree and another one only requiring relevant experience in the work that you are going to be doing. This is because we believe in attracting best possible talent, and with thousands of open roles across the company around the world, we are fortunate to open up this opportunity to a wide range of talent that comes from all walks of life. You have heard, I'm sure, that this statement that we make, 75% of our management associates start their career at Walmart as hourly associates. I think that shows the pervasiveness of inclusivity in our organization. We are also very intentional about some of the metrics that were mentioned. in the recruiting funnel and candidate experience. We built a very comprehensive talent dashboard to measure our recruiting performance and each of the KPIs in 6 stages of recruiting that we have for external candidates. With this has given leaders to be able to understand where we have opportunities to improve, where we are doing well, so we can actually lift and shift best practices from one area to another area.
Those are, again, I think that just your ability to think about that and then have them influence the programs are incredibly important reasons that we're able to have this wonderful discussion today. Now let's talk about the last 12 to 15 months. Let's turn to COVID. If you can remember, and let's see if anyone can remember before. Doesn't certainly feel like it's just been 12 to 15 months, but one of the things that I think is interesting is I think that JetBlue and Walmart were affected very differently by the pandemic. Particularly approaches to people management, talent development, all of these things are different in the context of the last 12 to 15 months. Mike and Amy, how have you thought about adapting these programs, given the context of since the pandemic and what's happened? What have you been able to adapt? What have you had to kind of start new? Mike, can we start with you?
Yeah, thanks, Stuart. I think I always like to go back to say, what do we have in common before I get to how we're different? And so what do we have in common is, the globe has seen this invisible little virus, and we don't even know at the beginning, how it got there, how it's getting to people and everything else. So we've actually lost what little psyche that we had of control. So control's gone. I mean, it's an illusion. I have no control. I don't know what to do next. And, a lot of people react differently to that, and everybody had different situations. So is it I need to protect my children? I don't know what's going to happen next. Do I have a spouse who's got some immune issues and I'm worried about that? Parents, we have a lot of folks taking care of their parents as well. Don't forget mass transit. A lot of people where we work in airports and cities, they have to take mass transit to get there. So a lot of times folks are like, I'll just get my car. I'm alone in my car. I'm fine anyway. Well, I take a train and a subway to get to work every day. So people are start thinking about that. So that illusion that we used to have of a little bit of control is gone. But I think we've all suffered through that. And I think some of the reactions immediately to that is, how do we support our crew members with, online therapies, Talkspace, crew member assistance program, Headspace, Inscape, all these different things to help people, have someone to talk to about these things, to empathize with them. But as the company, have the company there as well too. Now, where Amy and I will start parting ways is JetBlue has always been a growth airline. Literally every 2 weeks, we would have orientation with, 150 folks in every class, hiring 300 people a month for as long as I can remember, 10, 11 years. So we do not have any muscle memory because we've never used the muscles to shrink and contract. So now, I've lost my overall sense of psyche of control in the world. Can I even go to the store? Is it on packaging? Do I wear no mask? Do I wear three masks? Do I have to cover my eyes? And now I could always rely on JetBlue growing, and it's not growing anymore. So, we had to do a lot of different things to shrink a bit. And as I said earlier, we talked about, well, if you can take some time off, would you like to go with taking some JetBlue scholars? We offered some early retirements and said, while traveling, as a JetBlue crew member is not available right now, would you like to take an early opt-out for some crew travel privileges in the future? So, we had to kind of put the brakes on those things and how we can shrink the company for a period of time, an unknown period of time, and then all of a sudden flip the light switch back on again. So now the third phase we're going through now is how do we start things back up again? And I think the best thing that we can do right now for all of our crew members and employees is show them that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we're on our way to the light at the end of the tunnel. Stuart.
Well, thank you for that. And it's in some ways almost like a yo-yo, but you're not sure whether it's down or up yet. And so Amy, do you want to talk a little bit about what happened at Walmart over?
Sure. Sure. You know, Mike, a lot of what you just described goes back to how we were thinking about as just the humanity as like a thread, and our own digital transformation, which was already underway. And I'll tell you, you know, when you don't think something can get done, you know, layer in the most challenging year you could possibly architect, and suddenly things get done. So some of the things that we work toward, so I'll give you a couple of examples. One was Project 24. We had hired people into let me back up and just say, our fulfillment centers were under tremendous pressure. Just remember back to those early days of just needing access to toilet paper, and there was none on the, none on the shelves. And by the way, at some point, every American had, 15 rolls, because we were just, selling out. But all that is to say, we needed people in our fulfillment centers and in our stores to be, helping our customers, and with delivery and pickup and so many different aspects of our business that were just accelerating so rapidly. And so what that meant is we committed initially to hiring 150,000 associates in a brief period of time. We ultimately, in a very short period of time, hired well over 500,000 people. And in order to do that, within 1 weekend, we figured out how to shrink our hiring process from 2 weeks to 24 hours. And so, the digital capability, offloading responsibilities of our store managers and store leaders so that they could focus on the associates in the stores and the customers right in front of them. So again, we always thought that was possible. It stood out there, and then, the pandemic accelerated that. Just back to this humanity aspect, I mean, the fragility of, everyone during this time as a very human experience came to the front, right? So well-being was first and foremost. We came out very early with our approach to supporting financial, emotional, and physical well-being. So first and foremost, our protocols. We also supported our associates through billions of dollars in bonuses and other financial support, and then the emotional well-being through various employee assistance programs and other aspects. And that was just really, really, I think, essential to how we were approaching it. I also want to mention we worked directly, actually, at one point with JetBlue. I worked with some people on your team, Mike. You may know that when we had these jobs that were posted, we were looking to help get people back to work, even if it was temporarily, knowing that JetBlue would come back, and there would be a light at the end of the tunnel. And so that was a big part of our work. I would also say that the demands on leaders were tremendous, whether you were customer facing or you were suddenly a sustained virtual leader on Zoom all day and everything in between. We provided as much support as we could. We partnered with Thrive, Arianna Huffington's organization, to help people take little micro steps for their own health and well-being. And we had a number of tools that we used. And then, of course, in the context of civil unrest, we just leaned into our values. We were very clear on where we stood as an organization in support of Black Lives Matter and the other work. And fortunately, our business was, has benefited from a lot of the learnings. There was a lot of learnings through this, but like you said, Mike, does feel like we're turning a corner, and it's, getting a vaccine is like a lottery ticket these days. So that's what I equated it to. So we're really keen to support, and as we administer vaccines throughout the country, it's a really core focus of ours for the time being, to make sure we can help people get back to or get forward to what the future looks like.
Yeah. I want to stay on that hope a little bit and turn to Ryan and Yoack to talk a little bit about how you all have operationalized this, what you've been seeing in terms of uptake, and how you all have been kind of approaching monitoring what's happening in the workforce at both companies, and hopefully like some of those positive signs, like watching what we hope is a rebound. It's not going to turn around. Ryan, let's start with you.
Yeah, it's a tough one because we're not out of it yet. Like Mike said, we're just now starting the rebound and the scaling up. When I think about the programs that we've been putting in place, I talked before about uptake, and it does seem that there's a lot of interest in taking advantage of these programs. He was talking about the mental health programs. We've got great engagement from our crew there, and there's a lot of gratitude in our pulse surveys that have gone out just to have these resources because the need became so great. Now we have to look forward. We hinted at this through some of our answers before, but when we designed a lot of these programs, we focus on clarity. If it's an advancement program, we look at the needs of our the society's traditionally underserved groups and try to give some clarity on how the heck to start a new field or career path. Lower that price of entry as much as possible, as fast of a timeline as you can, because these are all adults with a lot of stuff going on. And Mike talked a bit about job security as well. When we talk about program uptake, we've been very pleased with it, but we're still listening to see if we're meeting their needs. We have our company-wide survey out right now, and I got lots and lots of work to do to check in on the programs that we have in place right now are meeting their needs, and if they're not, we got to tweak, and we got to tweak quickly because it's rapidly changing, and we need to re-engage all those we've lost as we scale back up.
Almost did it, but I got myself off mute before I jumped in and started talking. Let me just turn it directly to Yalak. I know that we're coming up on, we've only got a few minutes left, so please tell me what you've been looking at.
Yeah, so Amy mentioned Project 24, where we were able to hire people in 24 hours. Of those 24 hours, just for visualization purposes, about 17 to 19 hours of those were us waiting for the candidate to actually complete their application. So behind the scene, we can actually start the onboarding process. So you can see how important digitization and automation was in order to enable that 24-hour hiring. As part of the hiring over 500,000 associates also, there was a lot of data and analytics behind the scene around forecasting daily hiring capacity, being able to identify candidates that are potential for each of these roles. And in terms of the well-being portion of it, we did both active listening and ambient listening, active listening through pulse surveys, and then doing text analytics and other types of analytics behind the scene, but also ambient listening using workplace analytics to identify, are there people that are over collaborating over the weekend or at night? How do we partner with our associates that are in other parts of the world? And how can we make data-driven well-being recommendation for those associates? So data and analytics really was paramount in helping us go from collaborating in person to really within a couple of days to collaborating almost 100% over virtually through Zoom, WebEx, and other capabilities.
Just incredible shifts in such short periods of time. I've got a couple lightning round questions that hopefully we can get through, and then Deborah can tell us whether or not we're allowed to keep going or not. But I know we're coming up on our time, but I want to ask a little bit of a different question to you all. So sustainability, which really started just in the environmental realm, has really begun to kind of be seen in so many different other ways. One of which is certainly is as a people management and people concept. Amy, can I start with you and just ask what sustainable human resources means to you, and then we'll turn to Mike and Ryan and Yellow.
Yeah, I've only just wrapped my head around this. And so Walmart announced that we were becoming a regenerative company. So what does that mean? You know, it means that it's not just compliance and sustainability, but also placing nature and humanity at the center of our business practices. How do we restore, replenish, renew, in addition to how we conserve? And the talent marketplace is very much a part of that. And by the way, none of this can happen without Yellow and his team's support and partnership in ensuring that we know where our business is now, where our talent is now, and how can we use these concepts, this regenerative concept, to help people get more opportunity. I mean, I think, Mike, you said it earlier, this idea of mobility, you know, you think of taxes and people moving their, you know, goods. And so I like the concept of movement. Like, how do we just create more agility, more movement, and a more regenerative, you know, to me, it's like it incrementally grows, right? It improves. And so I like the concept as we think about how we want to grow and invest in our associates. And we're putting, you know, we're sort of rolling our sleeves up and translating that to the people function and the work we're doing.
Thanks. And Mike?
I know we're running out of time. I think, remember I said our mission was to inspire humanity. And when I start talking about sustainability of talent, I look at it, I use the word inspire. So how do we inspire our future generation, whether they're technicians, diverse crew members, pilots? So a couple quick things. We were the first airline to form a foundation. In 2013, we formed the JetBlue Foundation. And it's focused on STEM education. It's in areas of need. We've donated over 1.7 in grants, and those are focused around different things. Dispatchers, pilots, aircraft mechanics, and supporting schools in the ability to do that. A couple other things that I think go right to, you know, inspiring a sustainable workplace for aviation of the future is, you know, we have a crew member resource group, Women in Flight, and one of the programs that I love that they have is Fly Like a Girl. And the last one is just our overall corporate social responsibility. When we are embedded in the culture and the companies and the communities where we fly. So it's natural where someone's going to say, I kind of interested in that. So really, for me, it's how do we inspire the future generation of aviation professionals?
I see Deborah turned her camera back on, and I'm going to see if we can do one inside the actor's studio question, where one word to the four of all of you. Your choice, either what should we watch for over the next year, and maybe even more so, what gives you hope in this realm for the next year? Just one or two words.
I think there's tremendous potential. You know, we've never been through something like this before, just, you know, very tragic circumstances, and we hope there are green shoots that come from the experience and potential.
Great. And Ryan raised his hand, so he's next.
I'll take psychological safety. People are more comfortable speaking up about their own unique needs and barriers they're facing. So we have to foster psych safety, and I'm so thrilled people are more able to speak to their needs, because then we can solve for them.
Absolutely. Mike, are you locked?
Yeah, I'm just trying to be glass half full. What are the things that COVID has opened up for us? Like you know, the ability to work from home, the more remote work from home. I think that opens doors for a lot of people who maybe weren't able to do that in the past. I think it levels the playing field and it's equity in that regard.
And
for me, two words. New normal. I think that has been normalized. The other one is equality and social justice.
That's a perfect way to end. I'm gonna turn it back to Deborah.
Well, we understand that some people have to leave, and thanks to everyone for coming, and thanks so much to the panel for an incredible discussion. But if anyone wants to say, I can't get enough, this is an unbelievable discussion. So thanks to those who have to leave. And for those who want to stay, I'm here. Stuart, do you want to continue the discussion?
Well, sure. If people have the chance to go, it looks like Mike had to drop, but so one of the last questions is
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Amy had
much.
her own.
Terrific.
And so this is
Incredible.
this is actually a
discussion.
perfect one. If Yolak and Ryan, you've got the chance to do it. The question that I was about to leave on the cutting room floor, but I think is of relevance to our audience is for people in roles similar to yours in people analytics, what's the one thing or couple things that you think that they should watch for, measure, kind of help to help direct their work over kind of the near term future?
I can start, and you can close us out. So I think, to me, this word hybrid by design comes to mind, especially for those that have the ability to work from home and to work in the workplace. As we begin also to transition back to in-person work and collaboration moments, it's important, I think, to continue tracking the unique needs of our people because that is going to evolve, and being able to measure and analyze how their working style potentially evolves, right? And new companies are in the mindset of preparing for the new normal of work life. But I think it will be just as important to continue tracking things like engagement, things like well-being, things like collaboration, efficiency, burnout rate, overall well-being, once we are living in the new normal, so we can continue to adjust and refine our approaches. And as we prepare for whatever the future brings.
Great, thank you. Ryan.
I think we're pretty aligned there. I mean, my topic would be wellness. It's entered the lexicon of people analytics professionals, and a lot of our programs are about fostering this wellness. And I don't think that that's going to go away from how we speak and what guides our work anytime soon, whether it's survey programs or how we design work or anything like that.
Well, I think that's a good place to close. I think we should stop there. I think that one of the things that I've learned, at least over the last hour, is that there's a lot for people like me who like to watch what's happening in this realm to figure out what's going to happen broadly in kind of the American workforce, what's happening in the economy, to understand how workers are going to get attached to work that allows them to sustain their lives and their families. And I'm really hopeful. I mean, I think that what I've seen today is that in kind of very different situations, but also very similar ones, kind of massive shocks, using a data-driven approach, JetBlue and Walmart have found ways to navigate some of these challenges really quite effectively. And I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that the examples lead to other people, and I'm finding ways to replicate it and adapt and do what's similar to them. So I want to thank everyone that joined us, and thank our panelists for sharing some knowledge, and look forward to any follow-up. I'll turn it back to Deborah.
Thank you so much, Stuart, for doing an incredible job leading this really, really illuminating discussion. And thanks to those who are in the audience, Ryan, Yolak, thank you so much. And in absentia, Amy and Mike. So thanks to everyone. Have
Thank
a good
you.
day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.